Hey there. Tonight we're taking you somewhere truly awful. Back to the grimy, grueling, gloriously unhygienic world of medieval Europe. Forget knights in shining armor and chivalry. This isn't a fairy tale. It's more like a plague-ridden fever dream. So fluff your pillow, dim the lights, and let's ease into a time when life expectancy was shorter than your average Netflix series. You wake up, not gently, not in some peaceful, chirping birds kind of way. No. You snap awake because something just crawled across your face. You slap blindly and feel something squish. That wasn't a dream. That was a lice, or a flea, or worse. You'll never know. Welcome to 1325. Your bed isn't a bed. It's a half-rotted bundle of hay thrown into a wooden frame that creaks like it's negotiating with death every time you shift. There's a wool blanket on top, matted, moist, and full of regret. It smells like it hasn't seen sunlight since your grandmother was born, and she's probably buried under the same kind of blanket. There's no pillow, just a sack of something that once might have been straw, but now feels like it's hosting a family of something else. You're not alone in this bed either. The entire family shares the space. Mom, dad, 3 siblings, and possibly the chicken. There's a warm shape at your feet that clucks softly. You choose not to look. Outside, a bell tolls. It's not melodic. It's not elegant. It sounds like God's own migraine. It's the church calling everyone to prayer, or work, or survival. They're all the same thing here. You roll over trying to ignore it, but then the smell hits you. It's not one smell, it's a symphony. A pungent, aggressive symphony of sweat, smoke, mold, livestock, stale urine, and despair. The room is one open space. Cooking pot, sleeping pile, and chamber pot all within arm's reach. You can touch the fire pit and your sister's lice-ridden hair at the same time. Cozy. Your eyes adjust to the dimness. There's no glass in the window, because there is no window. Just a hole in the wall plugged with a cloth that's stiffer than the bread you ate last week. You lift the corner of the cloth to peek out. Mud everywhere. The ground, the walls, the animals. You're not looking at nature, you're looking at a bacteria playground. You sit up. Bad move. Your back screams like a rusted gate. You're 23, but you feel 90. Your knees crack like firewood. You cough and taste smoke. Not from a cigarette, those don't exist yet, but from the soot baked into every inch of this hut. There is no chimney. Smoke just hangs around until it escapes or kills someone. Probably both. You stand. Immediately you regret it. The floor is wet. Again, not from a spilled drink, because no one here has drinks, but because the roof leaks. Rain seeps through the thatch like a bad secret, and puddles form in corners. Or maybe that's something the goat did. Either way, your feet are soaked. No socks, no shoes. Your feet are bare, calloused, and tough from walking through dung, splinters, and regret. They itch. Everything itches. Your scalp feels like it's hosting a miniature war. Fleas, lice, mites. They all pay rent in blood. You scratch absently, then realize your fingernails are full of black gunk. You hope it's dirt. There's no bathroom. You know that already. The chamber pot in the corner is full. Again. Someone should have dumped it yesterday. That someone might have been you. Now it's everyone's problem. You hold your breath and sidestep it like it might explode. One wrong move and your day is ruined before sunrise. You hear your mother stir. She mutters a prayer. She does this every morning, half out of devotion, half out of fear. Everyone's afraid of hunger, of disease, of God, of the Lord who owns your land, of the rats, especially the rats. They've grown bold lately. One stole a bit of pottage last week, right off the spoon. You stretch your arms. Your tunic is stiff with sweat. You wore it yesterday, and the day before, and the month before. It hasn't been washed. Why would it be? Soap costs money. Water is for drinking or dying from. Laundry is a luxury. You hear coughing. Your younger brother sounds like he's about to eject a lung. That's normal. Everyone coughs. Everyone wheezes. The air is thick with mold and sorrow. You once heard of someone who went a whole week without coughing. They died. Must have been a bad sign. There's no breakfast smell, no bacon, no bread, no anything. Just the acrid memory of last night's fire. You don't remember what you ate. Probably pottage. It's always pottage. And it always tastes like disappointment. You take a step. The floor creaks. Something scurries. You pretend you didn't see it. Your toe squishes into something that wasn't there yesterday. You pray it's mud. You pray a lot these days, not because you're devout, but because you're desperate. This is your morning, your life, your reality. And the worst part, it hasn't even really started yet. Let's talk about your bed. If that word still feels generous after last chapter, congratulations. Your standards have officially been medievalized. This mattress you sleep on, it's not a mattress. It's a flattened sack stuffed with hay, old wool clumps, and whatever detritus the previous season coughed up. Over the past year, it's absorbed more sweat, illness, and drool than a tavern mop. There's no sheet, there's no lining, and don't even think about flipping it over. It's just as cursed on the other side. You lay on it every night. So does your entire body's insect entourage. Fleas, lice, mites, they don't just visit. They live here. They multiply here. They host social gatherings. If you scratch yourself long enough, you'll find a bug you didn't know existed. The straw isn't fresh. No one has changed it in months, maybe years. Why? Because straw is valuable. It's for livestock, thatching, and, when truly desperate, eating. Using it to fluff a bed is already a luxury. Replacing it? That's just bourgeois fantasy. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you'll feel something crawl into your tunic. You'll flinch, slap, curse, and then try to go back to sleep knowing full well that it's never just one. Your blanket is no help. A coarse slab of wool that traps cold better than it traps heat. It smells like wet sheep and old despair. It's so saturated with grime, it might be sentient. If you listen close enough, it might whisper tales of other miserable backs it has failed to warm. At night, temperatures plummet. The fire in the hearth sputters out hours before dawn. There is no insulation, no glass, no chimney. Just holes in the walls where air, foul and freezing, slips through like an unwelcome ghost. You shiver under your wool shroud, teeth chattering, wondering how much warmth a dead chicken could provide if you hugged it. You shift to your side, seeking relief. You find none. Every angle presses some part of your body into something sharp, damp, or unidentifiable. Your shoulder aches. Your hip is numb. Your skin crawls. Sleep in this place isn't restful. It's just a temporary surrender. And yet somehow, you do sleep. Your body, exhausted beyond language, gives up. You pass out, hoping the bugs take mercy. They don't. You wake in the middle of the night, itchy and vaguely haunted. The moon's light barely filters through the hole in the wall. You hear snoring, lots of it. Your father sounds like a forge bellow. Your brother whistles through a deviated septum. One sibling mutters in Latin. You didn't know he could speak Latin. He can't. In the silence between snores, you hear the scurrying. Rats. Beneath the bed, along the rafters, inside the wall. They rule this place. You are the guest. You clutch the blanket tighter and pray they're not hungry tonight. A flea bites your ankle. You slap it. Miss. Now it's personal. You scratch until your skin flakes. It won't help. Tomorrow you'll have fresh bites. You always do. Back to sleep. Eventually, when morning comes, your body aches as if you've been in a tavern brawl you don't remember. Your joints crack, your neck protests, your eyes are gummy with sleep, and possibly an infection. You sit up and feel the brittle crunch of hay collapsing beneath you, compacted from months of weight and sorrow. This bed is a lesson. Comfort is relative. If it doesn't collapse or catch fire, you call it a success. If the vermin don't feast on your face, you count your blessings. If you survive the night, you rise and do it again. Because that's what sleep is in medieval times. Not a retreat, not restoration. Just the hours you're unconscious between suffering. Sweet dreams. Welcome to your home, or what passes for one. It's not a castle or even a cottage. It's a hut. A one-room, dirt floor, smoke-filled shack that somehow manages to be too hot, too cold, and too damp all at once. The walls are made of wattle and daub, which is a fancy term for sticks held together with mud, dung, and wishful thinking. There's no insulation, just wind whistling through cracks, wide enough for rodents to hold meetings in. If you hold a candle up to one wall, the flame bends in response to the breeze. If you listen closely, the walls complain. The roof is thatched. It leaks. Of course it leaks. Rain doesn't knock. It drips, one drop at a time, onto your face, onto your blanket, into your bowl of dinner sludge. If you try to patch it, you need straw and luck. You have neither. The fire pit in the center of the room is your sole heat source and your top source of lung damage. Smoke gathers like gossip, curling upward into the rafters, then circling back down to remind you who's boss. Your eyes water, your throat burns, but hey, it keeps the flies away. Sometimes, privacy, don't even dream of it. Your parents, siblings, maybe a widowed aunt, all share this space. So do your animals. The family pig sleeps by the door. The chickens, they roost wherever they please. The goat, he's family now. He doesn't pay rent, but neither do you. Conversations are never private. Arguments are public. Bodily functions are communal. You grow up hearing everything, seeing everything, and eventually not caring about anything. Embarrassment is a luxury. You left that behind in the straw cradle. At night, everyone piles in. One big, itchy, coughing, farting pile of humanity and livestock. It's not charming, it's survival. The body heat is welcome. The smells are not. The floor? It's dirt, not metaphorically, literally. Packed earth, mixed with animal droppings, food scraps, and spilled dreams. You sweep it occasionally, with a bundle of sticks, but it never looks clean. It never is clean. Bacteria call it home. Worms visit. The furniture situation is minimalist to the point of spiritual. A bench maybe, a table that limps, a few wooden bowls carved so roughly they give splinters with every meal. Your prized possession? A pot, not even a nice one, but it holds pottage, so it's sacred. Storage? Forget it. You hang things on nails or wooden pegs, clothes, tools, and hope, all strung up like drying herbs. If you own more than 2 spoons, you're practically bourgeois. There's a hole in the wall that pretends to be a window. It lets in light and every flying thing within 2 miles. It has no glass, of course, just a flap of cloth that blocks absolutely nothing. When the wind blows, it flaps like a lazy flag of surrender. Outside your door is a yard, sort of. More like a mud pit with ambition. The family latrine is a hole somewhere in the back, occasionally covered, often not. The smell is constant. Your neighbors share it, and so do their chickens. You don't own the land. It belongs to the local lord, who's never visited but still demands 1/3 of your harvest and throws you in jail if your goat wanders into his barley. The hut is yours to suffer in, but not truly yours. But here's the miracle. You survive. This cramped, smoke-soaked, rat-infested shack keeps out most of the rain and some of the cold. It's a barrier between you and the wolves, between you and the elements, between you and a much faster death. So you patch the leaks, you sweep the filth, you feed the fire, You share your corner of the hut with your cousin and his tubercular wheeze. Because in medieval Europe, a home doesn't need to be comfortable. It just needs to not kill you immediately. And even then, it still might. You don't need an alarm clock in medieval Europe. You have a bell, not a pleasant one, not a dainty chime or a cozy ring. This one is big, loud, and angry, like the world's least punctual blacksmith hammering a cathedral. It rings from the church tower in the center of the village. The clang slices through the dawn fog like divine judgment. It doesn't say, "Good morning." It says, "Wake up, sinner. You've got repentance and mud to get to." You groan, not because you're ungrateful, but because the noise feels like it's been installed directly into your skull. The bell rings for prayer, it rings for labor, it rings for death, and sometimes it rings for no reason at all, just to remind you who's in charge. Everyone in the village hears it. The baker, the miller, the boy with one eye and the girl with the permanent cough. The chickens, too. Even the goat twitches. The bell is law. When it tolls, you obey. You don't ask why. That's above your pay grade, and your pay is dirt. The first ring is before sunrise, prime hour, morning prayer. You don't need to know Latin to understand what's expected of you. Get up, cross yourself, whisper something halfway between a confession and a plea, then get moving. By the third bell of the day, you've prayed twice, milked the goat, and maybe even shivered yourself into a light fever. You're not religious because you're pious. You're religious because there's no alternative. God isn't just a belief system. He's a timekeeper, a job description, and a surveillance state rolled into one. The church controls the clock. Bells mark every canonical hour. Matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, compline. Each one is a summons to pray, repent, or just pause long enough to remember you're mortal and always being watched. And yes, that's exhausting. You're expected to live a life of constant awareness, of sin, of salvation, of where your eyes go and how long they stay there. Thought about sex? Sin. Thought about not thinking about sex? That's suspicious. Laughed at a joke too hard? Probably heresy. The priest hears everything. He's everywhere. He lives in a nicer house than you, wears better robes than you, and eats better bread than you. He speaks in Latin, gestures dramatically, and never seems to have mud on his boots. You're not sure he's fully human, but you go, you kneel, you chant, you listen, you pretend to understand. The sermons are long, cold, and mostly about hell. You know the words for fire and damnation in Latin better than you know your cousin's name. Every week there's a holy day. Every month a saint's day. Every year a feast day. You fast more often than you feast. You confess things you don't fully understand, just in case. You give coins you don't have to, a church that has plenty. You light candles in hope. You extinguish dreams in silence. Religion isn't just a part of life, it is life. The calendar is structured around sacred rituals. Your body belongs to your Lord, but your soul belongs to the priest. And your fears? They belong to both. Miss a mass? That's a sin. Don't tithe properly. Talk back to the priest? Heresy. Think the bell is annoying? That's probably witchcraft. Everything is a possible sin if the priest says so, and he usually does. The bell rings again. Midday. Time to bow your head, mumble your devotion, and pretend you're not fantasizing about dry socks or meat. You whisper a prayer with cracked lips and hollow breath. Not for grace, not for salvation, just for the strength to get through the next bell, because you know it's coming. Always, you don't need an alarm clock in medieval Europe. Always. Morning has broken, and by broken, we mean shattered. You've been awake since the bell rang. Your joints ache like someone replaced them with gravel, and now it's time to eat. If you can call this next part eating, there is no breakfast menu, no options, no choice. You don't feel like something sweet today, you feel like surviving. That's the only flavor on offer. What's for breakfast? Pottage, still, always. A bubbling gray mystery stew made from grains, water, yesterday's leftovers, and whatever vegetables haven't rotted yet. Sometimes it's thick enough to chew, sometimes it's closer to regret soup. It's been on the fire for days and it tastes like it knows. If you're lucky, there's a lump of turnip in there. If you're luckier, it's not moving. On feast days, rare, confusing, sometimes just Thursdays, you might get a slice of stale bread with a smear of something that claims to be animal fat. Butter is for nobility, so is flavor. Meat? Not unless you catch it or steal it. Eggs? Only if your chicken is in a good mood and the rats didn't get there first. Honey? That's a fairy tale. You eat what's available, what's cheap, what's edible enough not to kill you before lunch. And salt? Salt is currency. It preserves food, seasons it, and sometimes serves as rent. If someone sprinkles salt into your bowl, marry them or suspect them. Either way, it's serious. You don't eat alone. The entire family squats around a shared bowl or pot, spoons optional, elbows everywhere. Conversation is minimal. Chewing takes effort. So does staying upright. You take turns. You share. You endure. Water is not recommended. It's brown, questionable, and recently shared a stream with several types of waste. You boil it when you can, bless it when you can't, and hope you're still breathing by sunset. Wine and ale are safer, but costlier, so don't get attached. Breakfast is not a time for joy. It's a time for calories, energy, function. You eat because you need to toil in the fields, scrub wool, fetch wood, or dig a hole for someone who didn't survive last night's fever. You eat quickly, without indulgence, because food is fuel and time is a lord who doesn't take kindly to idleness. If you linger too long, you risk being labeled lazy, or worse, suspicious. Laziness might be a sin, or a sign of witchcraft. Either way, finish the mush. Sometimes someone brings news, a birth, a death, a tax increase. A strange cow was born with 2 heads. A boy disappeared into the woods. A monk saw a sign in the sky. You nod, slurp, and pray none of it affects your turnip ration. When the pot is empty, so is the conversation. Bowls go back on pegs. Rags wipe mouths. Everyone shuffles to their duty. No one thanks the cook. No one savors the meal. The best part of breakfast is that it's over. You carry the taste of it with you, though. It lingers. In your teeth, your breath, your soul. You'll taste it again at lunch, and dinner, and tomorrow. Because in medieval Europe, the food doesn't change. You do. Mostly by getting hungrier. After choking down your regret soup, it's time to get dressed. And if you thought breakfast was rough, just wait until you meet your outfit. Let's start with the fabric. Wool. Always wool. Thick, scratchy, unwashed wool. It's what your tunic is made of. Your cloak, your hose, even your undergarments if you're unlucky enough to have them. Wool isn't soft. It's not breathable. It doesn't move with you. It wrestles you. Every garment is a duel. You lose. There's linen too, if you're lucky or rich, but good luck keeping it white. You'll stain it before breakfast and soil it before lunch. There is no detergent. There is lye soap, which is basically weaponized ash and fat. It cleans the dirt and your skin, mostly by removing both. You own maybe 1 full outfit, 2 if you're wealthy. The poor wear what they have until it disintegrates or walks off on its own. When it tears, you patch it. When it shrinks, you wear it tighter. When it molds, you pretend it doesn't. The concept of seasonal fashion is laughable. You wear wool in summer, you sweat, you itch, you survive. Buttons? Not likely. You tie things on, you wrap, you drape, you cinch with string or a belt or hope. Zippers don't exist. Drawstrings do, but they often break. When they do, congratulations. Your pants are now optional. Shoes? If you have them, they're leather, poorly stitched, and shaped like hooves. There's no support, no cushioning, just a thin barrier between your foot and everything sharp, cold, wet, and medieval. You don't have socks. You have cloth wrapped around your toes like a sad bandage. It slides off by mid-morning and takes your hope with it. Everything smells. The clothes, your skin, the air between you and your family. Washing clothes is laborious. It involves hauling water, boiling it, beating the fabric, praying, then hanging everything in smoke just to keep the bugs off. And when you're done, it still stinks. Color is rare. Most peasants wear brown, gray, or the color of despair. Bright dyes are expensive. Nobles can wear green, blue, red. You wear used mud. It hides the stains and matches the walls. Camouflage by poverty and layers. You must layer, not for fashion, for necessity. One tunic is never enough in winter, so you pile them on until movement becomes theoretical. Your arms stick out at weird angles. You shuffle more than you walk. You are a bundle of wool and complaints. Hygiene doesn't help. Your clothes are rarely cleaned, but often slept in, sweated in, and occasionally bled in. They're heavy. They hold moisture. And with moisture comes mold, rashes, and the kind of chafing that makes grown knights cry. You think you're used to it, until a flea bites your thigh, under 3 layers, in a place you can't scratch in public. You twitch, you cough, you curse, because everyone else is doing the same. Fashion isn't expression, and sometimes it's punishment. You wear what you have, even if it's torn, stained, or barely recognizable as clothing. Because in medieval Europe, being dressed is better than being dead. And that's the style of the day. The sun is up, and so are you. Breakfast, if that sludge even counted, has settled like a brick in your gut. Now it's time to go to work. And in medieval Europe, work means one thing: the field. You don't own the field, of course. It belongs to your lord. You are merely borrowing the chance to suffer on it. In exchange for this generous opportunity, you must donate a large portion of whatever grows here back to him. It's called feudalism. You might call it theft with paperwork. The field is your nemesis. Endless rows of soil that's either too wet, too dry, too stony, or too cursed. Your tools? Primitive at best. A wooden plow with an iron tip if you're lucky, drawn by an ox that hates you, or a mule, or you if neither animal is available. You drag, you dig, you sweat. The earth resists. Your hands blister, your back aches, and your legs burn. You are bent over from sunup to sundown, clawing at the land like it owes you something, which it does. Food, barely, maybe. You wear no gloves. Your fingernails turn black with soil. Your palms split. Your feet soak through their cloth wraps before noon. Mud clings to your calves. Sweat soaks your tunic. And still the overseer shouts, "Work faster, straighter, better," as if soil can hear orders. Rain, you work. Drought, hail, you duck, curse, and keep working. There are no sick days. There are no excuses. You could have the plague, and if you can stand, you're expected to reap. If you collapse, well, you just fertilize the field. Lunch is whatever you packed. Maybe a crust of bread, a bit of dried onion, or a handful of beans. You eat squatting in the shade of your own exhaustion. The field doesn't care. The field watches. You pray for a good harvest. Everyone does. But the odds are slim. a late frost, too much rain, not enough sun, or pests the size of kittens, all can destroy your crop. You've lived through famine before? You know the signs, the tension in your father's jaw, the silence at dinner, the extra space in the pot. Sometimes the best harvest goes to the church or the tax collector. You watch wagons roll away carrying sacks of grain you needed more than the priest ever will. But God demands his share, and so does the Lord, and so does the rat who burrowed into your silo last week and refuses to leave. Your body breaks down, slowly. You start to hunch, your knees throb, you walk with a limp by 30. Arthritis, hernias, infections, all untreated. You don't know what's wrong, only that it hurts all the time, and yet you keep going. Because if you don't sow, you don't reap. If you don't reap, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, someone else might take your place, or your plot, or your family. There's no romance in peasant life. No golden wheat waving in slow motion. No poetic musings on the dignity of labor. There is toil. There is hunger. There is sweat. And sometimes there is death. Quiet, early, unremarked. At sundown, you trudge home. Your feet ache. Your hands burn. Your stomach grumbles. You pass others doing the same. Mud-caked, bent, silent. A whole village of walking pain. You crawl into your hovel, eat your second helping of despair stew, and collapse onto your straw infestation. Tomorrow you will do it again, and again, until winter comes, or doesn't, or you stop. The sun rises, but something's different. The bell still tolls. The chickens still squawk. Your back still screams. But today is Sunday, a holy day, a day of rest. Or so the stories say. In truth, Sunday is not for rest, it's for performance, for pageantry, for ritualized guilt. The church doesn't let you forget it's the Lord's day. And what does the Lord want? Clean souls, clean hands, and coin in the collection plate. First comes preparation. You scrub your face with cold water from a chip bowl. You change into your best clothes, meaning the least stained and the least lice-infested. You smooth your tunic with your hands as if that might make it look like something other than what it is, suffering in fabric form. Then you march to church. Attendance is mandatory. It's not just about faith, it's about reputation. If you miss a Sunday service, people whisper, they wonder, they accuse. One absence, and suddenly you're in league with Satan, or worse, you're French. The church looms like a stone sermon. It's the biggest building in town, and it smells like incense, damp stone, and ancient fear. Inside, the air is cold, not brisk, not refreshing, cold like punishment. The pews are hard, the floor is harder. The sermon? Long. Longer than your attention span, and definitely longer than your patience. You don't understand Latin, but that doesn't matter. You know the tone. Fire, brimstone, eternal damnation. The priest's voice echoes as if God himself is shouting through him. You sit, you kneel, you stand. You kneel again. You cross yourself so many times your arm goes numb. You try not to yawn, or sneeze, or look bored. Because someone is always watching, you confess your sins. All of them. Even the ones you didn't know were sins. Did you think a bad thought about the miller's daughter? Did you enjoy your food too much on Thursday? Did you scratch yourself inappropriately near the church door? Sin and possibly heresy. Communion is supposed to cleanse you, but the wine is sour and the bread is stale. The line moves slowly. Everyone looks serious. No one smiles. Holiness is a serious business. After Mass, there is gossip. Outside the church, people gather in clusters. They don't say much, but they watch. Who was late? Who looked too proud? Who didn't kneel deep enough or cross fast enough? Holiness is also a popularity contest. Then come the announcements. The priest reminds you about the tithe, the feast days, the fast days, the relics being shown next week. Someone's cow gave birth. Someone's cousin is dying. Someone's child has the pox. God bless them. God save us all. If you're lucky, there's a market. You might trade eggs for thread or gossip for fish. There is brief joy in seeing faces not covered in sweat. But it doesn't last. You mustn't enjoy yourself too much. This is still God's day, and God apparently is not a fan of fun. By mid-afternoon, you're home. You eat your second bowl of disappointment stew. You try to nap, but your thoughts drift to your sins. Did you pray hard enough? Did you give enough? Did the priest look at you funny? Are you already doomed? The sun sets. Another bell rings. You cross yourself again, just in case. You lie in bed wondering if God is pleased, or if he's keeping a list. You drift off, not rested, but watched. Tomorrow is Monday, and the field is waiting. Not everyone spends their life clawing at the earth. Some suffer differently. Some wield tools not for planting, but for pounding, hacking, and heating things until they scream. Enter the blacksmith and the butcher, two jobs that smell like the devil and sound worse. Let's start with the blacksmith. You hear him before you see him. Clang. The ringing of hammer against iron echoes through the village like judgment. It's rhythmic, violent, endless. The forge glows like a wound in the wall. Inside, heat, smoke, curses, and iron dreams. The blacksmith is part craftsman, part furnace, part beast. His skin is leather. His beard has soot permanently woven into it. His arms look like they wrestle oxen for fun. He sweats in winter and boils in summer. Every blow of the hammer reverberates in his bones. He smells like fire, metal, and something no one can quite identify. His job? Everything. Horseshoes, nails, hinges, swords, scythes, locks, keys, chains. If it's metal and it bends, he's made it. Or he will, or he'll throw it at you for asking too many questions. You don't want to work the bellows. It's like pumping lungs for a dragon with asthma. You don't want to hold the tongs. They burn. You don't want to stand near the anvil. Sparks fly like angry bees. But if you're an apprentice, you do all this for years, without pay, until you're deaf in one ear and proud of it. Then there's the butcher. The smells are different, but no kinder. Blood, fat, guts, death. If the blacksmith's forge is the breath of hell, the butcher's stall is its pantry. He works early, works fast, works with blades that have never known a whetstone gentle enough for poetry. He swings, slices, splits. He doesn't flinch. He's knee-deep in offal before sunrise and singing about it. Meat isn't refrigerated. It's hung. It's salted. It's smoked. It's occasionally regretted. Freshness is a fleeting concept. Flies are constant companions. Cats linger nearby. So do children. So do pickpockets. The butcher knows everyone. Everyone owes him. Everyone fears him a little because he holds knives, big ones, and because he's seen inside more creatures than the local priest has sins. These are not romantic trades. No sonnets were written about singed eyebrows and mutton spleen, but the village depends on them. When your plow breaks, you go to the blacksmith. When your pig dies, you go to the butcher. When you die, they might both show up, one for your nails, one for your ribs. Both men carry a strange power. They're not nobles, they're not clergy, but they are indispensable. And in a world that doesn't value many lives, being useful is the closest thing to safety. So you nod to them in the street. You stay polite. You tip your cap. You thank them for their service, quietly. Then you keep walking, because the anvil is still ringing, and something is still dripping from the butcher's apron. Marriage in medieval Europe isn't about love. It's about survival, land, dowries, family alliances, And wombs, lots of concern about wombs. You don't choose your spouse. Your parents do, or your Lord, or your circumstances. Sometimes you don't even meet them until the wedding. Surprise, it starts young. Engagements can happen at 12. Marriages by 14, especially if you're a girl. If you can bear children, you're old enough to stop being one. That's the logic. Terrifying, isn't it? Weddings are rarely romantic. They're transactional. A priest mumbles some Latin, a few coins change hands. Maybe a chicken is exchanged. You don't kiss because you love each other. You kiss because everyone's watching, and then it's official. You belong to someone, legally, spiritually, economically. The church calls it holy. You might call it claustrophobic. For men, a wife is an asset. She can cook, clean, fetch water, bear children, and work the fields. For women, a husband is a future, a roof, a name, protection, from other men mostly. Sometimes from starvation. There is affection sometimes, maybe even tenderness. But love is a bonus, not a requirement. What matters is heirs, labor, stability, appearances. You need sons. Daughters are fine, but they require dowries. Sons inherit. Daughters cost. Romance novels don't exist. Nor does dating. Courtship is rare and awkward. You might exchange awkward glances at the well, a smile at the feast, a nod at church. Then one day, your parents tell you it's settled. Pack your things. You're now Mrs. Someone. Marriage is forever. Divorce is virtually impossible. Annulment? Only if you're rich, powerful, or very good at convincing the church someone was secretly a cousin. You don't separate. You suffer. You adapt. Abuse happens, often, but there's no hotline, no shelter, no social worker. Just whispered prayers and bite marks hidden under sleeves. The church says the man is the head of the household, which sometimes means he uses it to knock things over. Widowhood is strangely liberating. If you survive your husband, you may own property, make decisions, remarry or not. For the first time, you're an adult, just in time for your joints to fail and your teeth to fall out. Marriage customs vary. In some places, the bedding ceremony is public. Yes, public. Witnesses ensure consummation. It's part performance, part humiliation, all horror. Elsewhere, it's more discreet. Just you, your new spouse, and a bed stuffed with hay and rodents. Adultery is a sin, a scandal, a public spectacle. For women, it can mean ruin. For men, it's often a punchline. Double standards were practically law, but through it all, people find ways to care. Couples grow fond. Some even fall in love after the wedding. In laughter, in labor, in shared grief, in the long silences between disasters. It's not poetic, but it's real. Because in a world this hard, any connection is a lifeline, even if it starts with a chicken and a priest who can't remember your name. In medieval Europe, children aren't little bundles of joy. They're little bundles of work, risk, and prayer. Cute, but mostly muddy, loud, underfed, and perpetually in danger of dying from something stupid. They start working as soon as they can walk straight, maybe earlier. Childhood as a concept hasn't been invented yet. If you're old enough to hold a stick, you're old enough to herd geese. If you can carry a bucket, congratulations. You're now responsible for water. If you can count to 10, you're ready for taxes. They're toys, sticks, rocks, maybe a dead frog. If your dad's a blacksmith, you get bent nails. If your mom spins wool, you get tangled yarn. Imagination is the only thing they can afford, and it better not get in the way of chores. Education? Rare. If you're a boy and rich and lucky, maybe the monastery will take you. If you're a girl, you learn to sew, scrub, kneel, and keep your mouth shut. Reading is for monks. Writing is for scribes. Numbers are for tax collectors in hell. Diseases love children. They're tiny, warm, and have no immunity to anything. Fever, pox, worms, plague. Name a medieval illness, and it's coming for them. Infant mortality is so high, parents sometimes don't name the baby for a few weeks. You might have 10 kids and watch 6 die before puberty. The survivors grow up fast, too fast. They see death. They bury siblings. They carry grief the size of adults in bodies that still squeak. And yet, they're everywhere. Barefoot, yelling, chasing chickens, throwing mud, getting in the way. Villages echo with their noise. Some are sweet, some are feral. All are hungry. Some parents love them, fiercely, desperately. They protect what they can't guarantee. They tuck them into straw beds, tell them stories about saints and monsters, and pray every night that they'll see morning. Children are currency. You need sons to work the field, daughters to marry off. More kids mean more hands. More hands mean survival. In hard winters, families ration food by usefulness. It's brutal math. Some children run away, join bands of beggars, steal, sell trinkets, trade secrets, get scooped up by guilds or gangs or God. A few become pages or apprentices. Most become memories. Even noble children aren't safe. They die of fever in silk sheets. They fall from towers. They're married off at 13 and dead by childbirth at 15. The plague doesn't care about lineage. But once in a while, a child grows up, becomes a blacksmith, a midwife, a priest, a thief, a survivor. And in a world so fragile, that's a kind of miracle. So you hold your baby close. You whisper a prayer. You feed them your last bite, because tomorrow isn't promised, especially not to the small. Feeling sick? Bad luck. In medieval Europe, illness is less a condition and more a divine punishment, or worse, your neighbor's curse. You don't go to the doctor. You go to the nearest person who claims they've seen a book once. If they have a robe and a beard, that's good enough. Let's be clear, medicine isn't science. It's guesswork wrapped in Latin. Physicians speak confidently and carry tools that look like torture devices. They believe in humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Balance them and you're healthy. Imbalance them and you're dead, probably from the treatment. Bleeding is the go-to cure. You feel feverish, bloodletting, sore throat, stubbed toe? Let's drain a pint just to be safe. Leeches are involved. So are knives. Cleanliness is not. You might get an infection, but that's considered a separate issue. If bloodletting fails, and it will, there's always purging. Drink this, swallow that. Induce vomiting, sweating, crying, anything to get the demons out. Laxatives are made from roots, ashes, or whatever made the last guy scream the loudest. Don't forget urine diagnosis. A doctor might examine your pee, its color, smell, even taste. Yes, taste. Medical expertise means sipping what you excreted and nodding thoughtfully. Your fate hinges on someone's palate. Surgery? God help you. Anesthetics don't exist. You're awake, tied down, and screaming while someone saws into your flesh with a rusty blade and a prayer. If you survive the procedure, the infection finishes you. Amputation is common. Sterilization is a myth. Death is routine. Herbalists do their best. They gather plants, whisper blessings, make poultices. Some know what they're doing. Others are guessing. All risk being labeled witches. Healing a fever might save a life or get you drowned in the village pond. Hospitals are run by monks. They're quiet, cold, and full of dying people and religious chanting. The care is spiritual, not medical. You accept God's will. You wait. Plague. No cure. Just prayers and mass graves. You flee if you can. You quarantine if you're lucky. You die if you're not. The doctors wear bird masks filled with herbs, not to protect themselves, but to mask the smell of decay. Toothache? Try yanking it out with pliers, or fire, or prayer. No Novocaine, no hygiene, just pain and determination. Mental illness? That's possession or lunacy. You're chained up, mocked, or purged. Sometimes you're left outside the village to wander and mumble. If you're lucky, a monk takes pity. If not, well, demons don't heal. And still, people seek cures because they want to live. Mothers soothe fevers with wet cloths. Old women crush herbs in wooden bowls. Midwives chant while delivering babies in dark huts. Hope persists even when reason doesn't, because sometimes you recover. And when you do, everyone calls it a miracle, even if it was just the fever breaking while no one was bleeding you out. Let's get something out of the way. People in medieval Europe aren't filthy because they enjoy it. They're filthy because the concept of cleanliness, as we understand it, hasn't been invented yet. Dirt isn't a problem. It's a natural state of being, like breathing or dying. Baths are rare. Water is cold, hard to haul, and usually already full of things that squirm. Heating it is a luxury. And if you're going to haul firewood, light a fire, fetch water, then cool off again, you might as well die dirty. It's more efficient. The idea that bathing frequently is healthy is, well, suspicious. In fact, many believe bathing opens your pores and invites disease. So better to let the filth seal you in like protective armor. You're not unclean, you're warded. When people do bathe, it's an event. Communal baths exist in towns. Big wooden tubs filled with water and people and smells. Everyone shares. Sometimes couples attend together, sometimes strangers. You emerge slightly cleaner and profoundly more confused. In the countryside, it's worse. You might bathe once a season, maybe twice if someone dies and you need to impress the priest. Soap exists, but it's harsh, made from ash and animal fat, and smells like remorse. Shampoo? Try vinegar, or just don't bother. Clothes are washed less often than funerals happen. Laundry involves beating garments against rocks or boiling them until the lice surrender. Most people have one outfit, two if they're rich. When they start to smell, you hang them in smoke. If that fails, blame the neighbor. Toilets are a fantasy. You use a chamber pot, a ditch, the woods, or the street. In cities, you might hear the cry, "Guard loo!" before someone dumps a bucket of horror from a window. Sidewalks don't exist. Neither do sewer systems. Just hope you're not downstream. Teeth? You might chew mint leaves, or rub with cloth, or do nothing. Dentists don't exist. Rotting teeth are common. Breath is a weapon. Smiles are optional. Hair gets matted. Beards go feral. Lice are a lifestyle. Fleas are roommates. You might shave your head to deal with it, or wear a hood and pretend it's someone else's problem. Women face even worse hygiene. Menstruation is a mystery wrapped in shame. There are no sanitary products, just rags, moss, or nothing. Privacy is rare. Stigma is constant. You bleed and hope no one notices, especially God. But still, people try. They sweep their floors with bundles of twigs. They air out bedding. They boil water for babies. They use herbs to mask the stench. And they judge each other's smell with the same ruthlessness they judge sin. Because even if dirt is normal, you still don't want to be the dirtiest. So you dab some rosemary on your neck. Comb the straw from your hair. Wipe your hands on your tunic. And step into the world as your cleanest self, which in medieval terms still smells like a goat who's had a bad week. In medieval Europe, justice isn't blind. It's cross-eyed, half-drunk, and easily bribed. The legal system is more theater than law, equal parts vengeance, guesswork, and divine roulette. You don't want to be accused of anything, ever. Let's say someone's cow goes missing, or a baker's daughter catches the pox. Or a loaf of bread mysteriously vanishes from a windowsill. What happens? Accusations, whispers, suspicion. You were nearby? You looked odd that morning? You once muttered something about goats? Congratulations. You're now a suspect. Trials exist, technically, but they're less about evidence and more about proving your innocence by surviving absurdity. There are three primary flavors of medieval justice: trial by ordeal, trial by oath, and trial by whatever the Lord feels like today. Trial by ordeal is the worst. You might be dunked in water. If you float, you're guilty. If you sink, you're innocent, and possibly dead. You might walk across hot coals or carry a red-hot iron bar. If your wounds heal clean, you're good. If they fester, as wounds tend to do, you're cursed. Trial by oath means getting your friends to swear you're innocent. If they're respected in the village, you walk free. If they stutter or have a shady past, or if nobody likes you, rope. Then there's the Lord's whim. If your local nobleman is feeling pious, you might get leniency. If he's bored, you might get a spectacle. Public flogging, stocks in the town square, maybe a creative punishment involving turnips and shame. And of course, the church has its own justice system. Heresy, witchcraft, blasphemy, that's their turf. And they don't mess around. Trials are held in Latin. Confessions are extracted by persuasion, meaning torture, the rack, the wheel, iron boots, heated tongs. The goal isn't fairness, it's purity, or fear, sometimes both. Torture is legal, encouraged even. It's how you extract truth from liars and how you break spirits into submission. You might be innocent. That's irrelevant. The pain is the point. Once you confess, the church forgives you and then kills you anyway, just to be sure. Prisons are rare, too expensive. Punishment is public, quick, and brutal. Fines if you're lucky, maiming if you're not. Death if someone wants to make an example. Executions are events everyone attends. Children too. It's entertainment and a warning rolled into one bloody package. Theft gets your hand chopped off. Adultery gets you branded. Gossip could get you dunked in the river. And witchcraft? Well, better hope your neighbor's like you, or that you don't own a cat. Justice depends on status. If you're rich, you're eccentric. If you're poor, you're dangerous. Nobles get trials. Peasants get ditches. The law protects those who pay for it and crushes those who can't. So you keep your head down. You don't talk back. You don't look the reeve in the eye. You avoid conflict, controversy, and that one guy who always has a torch. Because in this world, the best legal strategy isn't hiring a good lawyer. It's not getting noticed in the first place. Crime in medieval Europe is rarely slick, glamorous, or clever. There are no heists, no gentlemen thieves, just hunger, desperation, and really bad luck. Most criminals don't plan, they survive. Let's say you steal a loaf of bread, not because you're rebellious, but because your family hasn't eaten in 2 days and the rats are getting cocky. You get caught. What happens next? Depends. Maybe you lose a hand. Maybe you get locked in the stocks. Maybe you get whipped while the crowd spits and cheers. The humiliation is half the punishment. Petty crime is common. Theft, trespassing, poaching, gossiping too loud, insulting a noble, cutting down a tree that isn't yours, picking herbs from the wrong meadow. Crimes don't need to be big. They just need to offend the wrong person. Poachers risk their lives to feed their families. Killing a deer on noble land is a capital offense. The deer can eat your crops, but you can't eat the deer. That's not food, it's property. Same with firewood. Frozen to death? Too bad. The forest belongs to the baron. Sometimes crimes are invented. A lord needs a scapegoat. A priest wants to make an example. You made eye contact with the wrong person. Suddenly you're a thief, or a blasphemer, or someone who looked witchy, criminals are punished in public. The pillory, the whipping post, the dunking stool. Shame is mandatory. And the crowd? Oh, they love it. It's the only theater they get. Children laugh, vendors sell bread. You bleed and cry and maybe vomit a little, and they cheer like it's jousting. Violent crimes are different. Murder, assault, arson. These trigger real fear. But even here, justice is inconsistent. If you're poor and stab a man in a brawl, it's murder. If you're a knight and burn a village by accident, it's a misunderstanding. There's also a dark art to medieval violence. People get creative. Nose slicing, ear removal, branding symbols into skin, humiliation through costume. A thief might be paraded with stolen goods tied around his neck. A gossiper might be gagged with a wooden bit and walk through town. Your dignity dies before your body does. Prisons aren't for correction. They're holding pens for the condemned or ransomed. No rehabilitation, no second chances. You go in to wait for your sentence or your grave, but still people steal, people lie, people kill. Not because they're evil, because they're human and hungry and scared and angry. The village might stone you one day and steal your carrots the next. So you watch your words, you guard your garden, you hide your bread, and you pray that when the wheel of justice turns, it crushes someone else. Forget the paintings. Forget the tales of noble knights on white horses and banners flapping dramatically in the breeze. War in medieval Europe is not poetry. It's a mud-soaked meat grinder. And you, poor conscript, are just another ingredient. You don't go to war because you're brave. You go because your lord told you to. You're a farmer with a stick, not a soldier with training. The closest thing you've held to a weapon is a hoe, and now someone's handing you a spear longer than your house and saying, good luck. Armor? If you're lucky, you get a padded tunic. Chainmail is expensive. Plate armor is for the wealthy and the suicidal. It makes you harder to kill, but also easier to drown in a ditch. Most soldiers wear boiled leather, a helmet that doesn't fit, and a prayer their mother whispered into their ear. Training? March forward. Don't run. Hit the guy who looks different from you. Try not to die. That's the whole manual. Battlefields are chaos. Horns blare. People scream. Horses panic. Arrows darken the sky. Mud becomes quicksand mixed with blood and teeth. You can't hear commands. You can't see anything past the bodies. You swing wildly and hope the thing you hit isn't someone you know. There's no honor, no duels, no cinematic swordplay. Just pushing, stabbing, and slipping in viscera. If you fall, you're trampled. If you're wounded, infection follows. If you scream, no one hears. Sieges are worse. You sit in a field for weeks, starving, freezing, waiting. You build ladders and pray they are not on fire when you climb. The enemy dumps hot oil, stones, or dead cows on your head. Sanitation fails. Morale dies. Sometimes you eat rats. Sometimes you eat each other. Inside the castle, it's not better. Supplies dwindle. Fear spreads. Disease follows. The defenders pray the walls hold. The attackers pray for a breach. Everyone prays. God doesn't answer. Wounds are ghastly. Arrows pierce lungs. Axes cleave limbs. Infection is swift. Maggots are medicine. Amputation is survival. No anesthetics. No mercy. If you win, you loot, you pillage. You burn the enemy's crops and maybe their church. Then you go home if home still exists. If you lose, you're dead or captured or enslaved. Glory is measured in how much blood you track back across the threshold. And yet poets still sing about war. Nobles still toast it. The church still blesses it. They don't mention the parts with intestines and weeping. But you remember, because the sound of battle never leaves your ears, and chainmail doesn't protect against nightmares. To be noble in medieval Europe is to be born with land, titles, and a target painted on your back. You live in a castle, yes, but also in a web of alliances, grudges, blood feuds, and cousins who smile too much. You eat off silver, you drink wine instead of water. You wear silk, fur, and anxiety. Nobility means you're powerful, which means someone always wants you dead. Your days are full of ceremony. You host banquets that bankrupt villages. You give speeches in Latin you barely understand. You bless bread, break treaties, and pose for tapestries. But behind the pomp, everything is a test. Who bowed too low? Who didn't bow at all? Who touched your cup without permission? Paranoia is survival. Poison is real. Assassins are cheap. So you hire food tasters, lock your doors, rotate servants, and never sit with your back to the door. You fake friendships. You marry enemies. You smile through clenched teeth. Marriage is strategy. Children are bargaining chips. Every cousin is a possible heir or usurper. Inheritance laws are vague, changeable, and enforced by whoever has the biggest sword. Nobles go to war often, sometimes for glory, sometimes for boredom, sometimes because someone insulted someone's horse 3 generations ago. Battles are waged over insults, dowries, and land no one has ever seen. Peasants die for banners they can't read. You don't farm. You don't forge. You command. You issue decrees. You collect taxes. You drink imported ale while others bleed in your name. That's your job. That and not dying in your sleep. Court life is a minefield. One wrong phrase can start a feud. One missed gift can lose you a favor. Gossip is currency. So is flattery. So is betrayal. You learn to listen without reacting and to smile while being insulted poetically. Fashion is armor. Every jewel means something. Every fabric declares status. You wear cod pieces and crowns. You weigh 40 pounds more in ceremony than in battle. Looking the part is as important as playing it. But nobles get sick. They bleed. They age. They die. Sometimes they fall off horses. Sometimes they fall out of favor. Sometimes they just fall. Off balconies, down staircases, onto conveniently placed swords. The higher you rise, the more isolated you become. Friends thin out. Trust evaporates. You build walls but can't sleep. You eat delicacies but suspect every bite. You rule many, but understand few. And when the peasants revolt, they head for your house first, because all that gold on your head looks an awful lot like a reward. If medieval Europe is chaos, then the monastery is its opposite. Quiet, cloistered, and intentionally dull. Becoming a monk is the medieval version of opting out. No war, no marriage, no taxes, just prayer, parchment, and a strict vow of never having fun again. You don't stumble into monkhood. Sometimes it's your calling. More often, it's your parents. One too many sons? Send one to God. Younger sibling with no inheritance? Monastery? Got a weird dream and a guilty conscience. You guessed it, monk time. Your hair gets shaved in a ring, your clothes turn brown or black, and your name becomes something like Brother Theobald of the Holy Root. You trade shoes for sandals, meat for lentils, and conversation for muttered Latin. Monastic life is routine, almost violently so. You wake before dawn, you pray, you copy texts by hand until your fingers cramp and your vision blurs. You eat in silence, you sleep in silence, you breathe in silence. The only acceptable sound is the drone of Gregorian chants and the occasional stomach growl. Books are your life. You copy them, illuminate them, guard them like dragons, hoarding wisdom. Each letter takes hours. Each mistake is eternal. Your pen is your sword. Your ink is sacred. Parchment is so rare that mistakes are scraped off with knives. Food is simple. Bread, beans, broth, no spices, no meat unless it's a holy day or someone important visits. Then it's slightly better broth. Fasting is frequent. Hunger is constant. Gluttony is a sin, and so is complaining. Monks also garden, cook, mend robes, tend animals, and brew beer. Sometimes very good beer. The irony? You renounce the world only to keep it running. Monks are scribes, teachers, healers, and administrators. Without them, the church collapses. So does record keeping. So does literacy. But no one outside really understands you. To villagers, you're strange, silent, and slightly magical. To nobles, you're useful. To yourself, you're wrestling sin every morning and trying not to fall asleep during Compline. Temptation lurks everywhere. Boredom, vanity, secret pride in your illuminated letter. Gee, even monks sin. Some flee, some fall. Some sneak food at night. Some write questionable poetry in the margins. All of them repent. And when you die, you're buried in a simple robe, under a stone carved with prayers you once chanted 1,000 times. You gave up everything. Land, lust, legacy. In return, you got peace, or at least a quiet room in your own inkpot. In medieval Europe, the church isn't just a building you go to on Sundays. It's the most powerful institution in existence. It shapes your birth, your marriage, your death, and everything in between. It owns more land than any king. It owns your soul. The church is everywhere, in cities, villages, castles, and crossroads. Its bells mark time. Its priests mark morality. Its walls echo with hymns, secrets, and the occasional confession delivered through gritted teeth. Priests are local celebrities. Bishops are nobles in robes. Cardinals are political operators in red. The Pope? He's not just the head of the church. He's a kingmaker, sometimes even a war starter. When the Pope sneezes, kingdoms catch colds. To be pious is to be fearful. God watches everything. So does the priest. So do your neighbors. You sin in thought, deed, and probably in sleep. Hell looms large. Purgatory looms larger. The church offers forgiveness, but never cheaply. Salvation is transactional. You tithe, you fast, you confess. You buy indulgences, relics, and prayers. Want to get grandma out of purgatory faster? That'll cost you. Want to prove your piety? Build a chapel, sponsor a pilgrimage, fund a monastery. God likes gold, apparently. Services are in Latin, which you don't understand. But the incense is nice. The choir is haunting. And the rituals, smoke, bells, robes, are the closest thing to magic you're allowed to believe in. The church preaches poverty, but wears silk. It praises humility, but builds cathedrals taller than castles. It warns against lust, but hides secrets in the cloisters. Hypocrisy isn't a sin if it's institutional. Clergy are human. Some are kind, wise, and devoted. Others are corrupt, greedy, and fond of wine. Some break vows in secret. Others break them in public. The higher the office, the deeper the robes and the scandals. But for all its flaws, the church offers structure, hope, a moral compass in a brutal world. It's the only place where peasants sit beside nobles, where beggars kneel beside lords, where even the dirtiest soul can theoretically find redemption. It owns vast estates, collects taxes, and dictates law. Excommunication is worse than death. It's erasure. Pilgrims travel continents to kiss bones. Monks copy scripture to preserve salvation. The church decides what is sacred and what is heresy. And if you question too loudly, well, there's a firewood pile out back and someone sharpening a theological argument. So you kneel, you pay. Because in medieval Europe, God may be in heaven, but the church holds the keys to the gate. Education in medieval Europe is like a locked tower, tall, narrow, and only accessible if you have the right blood, money, or a saint-level tolerance for boredom. Most people don't get educated, they get trained. To plow, to stitch, to shoe horses. Reading, that's wizard stuff. If you do get an education, it's probably because you're male, rich, and your parents want you to become a priest, a scribe, or a political chess piece. Girls, education for them means learning to keep quiet, sew neatly, and survive childbirth. If a girl learns to read, she's either noble or headed for a nunnery. Schools are rare, often run by churches. They're cold, strict, and full of discipline that comes in the shape of sticks. You learn Latin first, always Latin, the language of the church, the law, and every book worth anything. You don't speak it at home. You barely understand it, but you copy it, chant it, and recite it until it haunts your dreams. Then comes grammar, logic, rhetoric, the trivium. If you survive that, maybe arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, the quadrivium. But don't expect experiments or discovery. Education isn't about questioning, it's about memorizing. The smartest student is the one who recites the loudest without crying. Books are precious. Each one takes months to copy. They're chained to desks, illuminated with gold and guarded like relics. You don't read for pleasure, you read for salvation, or at least to avoid being called an idiot in public. Teachers are clerics, sometimes monks, often terrifying. They slap as much as they speak. Lessons are recited, not explained. Mistakes are punished. Questions are suspicious. Humor is non-existent. University is available for the few. If you reach it, you wear robes and argue about Aristotle until your brain turns to porridge. You debate angels on pins. You write dissertations no one will read. You graduate eventually and become a priest, a lawyer, or someone's frustrated tutor. Still, education is power. It opens doors slowly, creakily. It lets you write letters, read laws, draft wills. It puts you above the illiterate masses, which includes almost everyone. Knowledge is leverage. Literacy is currency. But for most people, the closest they get to learning is hearing scripture at church or listening to tales by firelight. Oral tradition is their encyclopedia. Memory is their library. And yet someone, somewhere, is squinting at a flickering candle, copying letters by hand, trying to make sense of a world written in ink they can barely afford. Because even in the darkest centuries, someone always insists that learning matters, even if it gives you migraines. Education in medieval Europe is like a locked tower, tall, narrow, and only accessible if you have the right blood, money, or a saint-level tolerance for boredom. Even if it gives you migraines. In medieval Europe, travel is not a vacation. It's a gamble. Every road promises mud, misery, and a high chance of death. You don't stroll to the next village for fun. You go because you must, and you hope your shoes, your legs, and your luck hold up. Roads are little more than ruts in the earth. Cobbled highways are rare and sacred. Most paths are muddy trenches in summer, icy traps in winter, and bandit playgrounds year-round. Maps, unreliable. Signs, non-existent. Directions, mostly shouted guesses. If you're a peasant, you barely leave your parish. The world beyond the nearest market is myth. If you do travel, maybe to sell grain, visit a shrine, or find work, you pack light, bread, salted fish, a prayer, and a knife. You walk, maybe share a mule. If you're rich, you ride. If you're noble, you bring guards. If you're alone, you're prey. Bandits don't care who you are. They'll take your purse, your boots, and sometimes your ears. Forests are full of them. So are borderlands, crossroads, and the space between towns. Justice is slow, so most travelers are cautious, armed, or part of a caravan. Inns exist, but they're few and filthy. Fleas come standard. So does overcooked stew, watered wine, and a straw mattress that smells like regret. Some inns double as brothels, others double as traps. If you find one with clean water and no rats, you've entered legend. Crossing borders means paying tolls. Entering towns means answering questions. Every region has its own rules, rulers, and dialects. A wrong word can get you thrown out, or worse, conscripted. Speaking clearly, smiling often, and knowing when to shut up are your best travel tools. Pilgrimages are common. You walk for weeks, praying for forgiveness, healing, or adventure. You follow sacred routes, sleep under stars, and hope your blisters don't turn septic. At journey's end, you might see a relic, or a toe bone, or just another church selling indulgences. But for all its dangers, travel holds power. You see new markets, new customs, new injustices. You hear stories never told in your village. You come back with foreign words, strange ideas, and maybe a limp. You've changed. And in a world where sameness is safety, that alone makes you suspicious. So you return home, weary, wiser, and slightly broken. Medieval entertainment is not subtle, refined, or long-lasting. It's loud, chaotic, and often mildly dangerous. You don't go to unwind. You go to survive your own monotony. Life is labor, endless, aching, dawn to dusk labor. So when something fun comes along, a juggler, a fool, a fire eater, you grab a turnip, stake out a patch of dirt, and prepare to laugh until your ribs hurt or someone gets kicked in the face by a dancing bear. Jesters are the original stand-up comics if your idea of comedy involves crude rhymes, fart jokes, and cross-dressing. They mock the rich, the church, and sometimes themselves. The good ones survive. The great ones get paid. The unlucky ones get whipped. Fairs are the Super Bowl of peasant life. Music, food, games, gambling, contests, puppet shows, pickpockets. A riot of color and smells, some delightful, some less so. You buy roasted nuts, watch a pig race, maybe get a fortune told by someone suspiciously accurate. Then you go home slightly drunk, missing a shoe, and very, very happy. Taverns are the other escape. Loud, smoky, full of song and spilled ale. Stories are told, arguments are settled with fists, and troubadours trade ballads for a place to sleep. If you're lucky, there's a fiddler. If not, there's always that one guy who thinks he can sing, but he's loud. Games exist, though rules vary by region and sobriety level. Dice are everywhere. So are card-like games, often banned by the church but wildly popular. Sports involve hitting things, balls, each other, whatever's available. Injuries are common, so is cheating. For nobles, there's hunting, hawking, jousting, entertainment that doubles as flexing. If you're a knight, you joust to impress a lady. If you're that lady, you pretend to care who wins. If you're the squire, you pray your knight doesn't die and ruin the day. Music is woven into every celebration. Lutes, drums, flutes made from questionable materials. Lyrics range from holy to hilariously filthy. People dance in circles, stumble into each other, and call it courtship. Even religious festivals are excuses for fun. Saints' days become parades. Processions turn into parties. No one remembers the theology, but everyone remembers the mead. Because in a world so brutal, laughter is rebellion. And if someone juggles knives while wearing bells on their butt, that's not just entertainment, it's a miracle. Medicine in medieval Europe is 1 part guesswork, 1 part divine intervention, and 5 parts bloodletting. If you feel sick, your options are limited. Pray, bleed, or accept death with flair. Doctors exist, but good luck finding one who isn't also an astrologer, alchemist, or fraud. Diagnosis is based on the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Are you sneezing? Too much phlegm. Melancholy? Too much black bile. Solution? Balance the humors, usually by draining you of blood or making you vomit. Leeches are popular. So are heated irons, laxatives, purgatives, and potions made of things better left unnamed. Common ingredients include crushed emeralds, dried toads, and wine that has seen better centuries. If that fails, you can always try relics, saints' bones, or bathing in holy springs. Hospitals are monasteries with extra beds. Care is spiritual before it's medical. Nuns and monks tend to the sick with kindness and prayer, but little else. Sanitation is a rumor. Painkillers are herbs and prayers. If you need surgery, best do it drunk or unconscious. Wounds are cauterized with hot irons. Teeth are pulled with pliers. Bones are set by feel. Amputation is swift, mostly because it has to be. There's no anesthetic, just biting a strap and hoping you don't die of infection after. Superstition is rampant. Illness is punishment for sin or a sign of demonic possession. Cures involve chanting, holy water, or tying a live chicken to your head. If a comet passes overhead, expect a plague. If the moon looks funny, stock up on garlic. Midwives deliver babies and bury mothers. Infant mortality is high. Life expectancy is short. Death is not an if, but a when, and often a when that arrives midwinter, mid-meal, or mid-sentence. Still, people survive, somehow. Herbalists know plants that soothe pain or staunch blood. Folk healers pass down remedies that occasionally work. And some physicians, even with all their medieval madness, do save lives. But medicine is theater as much as science. And when it fails, which is often, at least you can go out dramatically. Because if you're going to die young, poor, and confused, you might as well clutch a relic, shout a saint's name, and bleed with style. Marriage in the Middle Ages isn't about romance. It's about alliances, land, inheritance, and making sure your cow ends up with someone else's pig in a way that benefits both families. Love might show up later, like a surprise guest, or not at all. Weddings are business deals, negotiated by fathers, sealed with dowries, and often conducted while the bride and groom are barely old enough to spell each other's names. For nobles, marriages are treaties. For peasants, they're practical partnerships who can till land, bear children, and survive long winters. The church blesses the union, but the community enforces it. Vows are said, hands are clasped, and witnesses nod. Sometimes a feast follows, sometimes just bread and broth. Either way, you're now legally tied to someone whose main qualification is proximity and your parents' mutual agreement. Women bring dowries, land, money, goods, or livestock. Men bring security, or at least a name. Wives are expected to obey, cook, bear heirs, and not die in childbirth. Husbands are expected to provide, protect, and not gamble away the farm. Infidelity is common. Tolerance varies. Men stray, it's a flaw. Women stray, it's a scandal. Divorce is rare and scandalous. Annulments require church approval and a creative imagination. Some marriages are loving, some are tolerable, some are lifelong battles of silence, sighs, and side eyes across a wooden dinner table. But everyone is expected to marry. Spinsterhood is suspicious. Bachelorhood is pitied. In the end, marriage is less about happiness and more about survival. 2 incomes, shared labor, many hands for many children. A team, a truce, sometimes even a tenderness, if you're lucky. But mostly it's duty, and the occasional awkward kiss under the eyes of an approving cow. Children in the Middle Ages are not coddled. They're born, baptized, and burdened with chores before they lose their baby teeth. Childhood is short. Adulthood begins at 7. You're not a precious snowflake. You're a future laborer. Naming a child too early is risky. Many die unnamed, unrecorded, and barely mourned by parents too used to loss. If you survive past 5, congratulations. You're expected to earn your keep. Peasant children herd animals, fetch water, and help in fields. Noble children learn manners, Latin, and how to sit still during long prayers. Boys train for trades or knighthood. Girls train for motherhood or convent life. Toys are sticks, bones, and imagination. Fun is whatever mischief you don't get caught doing. Education is rare. Most kids can't read, but they memorize prayers, superstitions, and survival skills. They grow fast. Teeth fall out. Bones lengthen. Then one day someone calls you man or wife, and that's that. Families are large. More children mean more hands, but also more mouths. Siblings share beds, clothes, and lice. Rivalries are fierce. Bonds are fierce too. You fight, cry, and grow up together. Despite the hardships, there's joy. Games, stories, songs, and warmth by the hearth. A stolen apple, a laugh, a moment of praise from a tired parent. But childhood is a narrow bridge over a chasm of dangers. Illness, accident, hunger. Not everyone makes it across, and those who do are rarely unscarred. Medieval food is not Instagrammable. It's functional, repetitive, and sometimes alarming. Meals are dictated by class, season, and what didn't die from mold. If you're a peasant, your diet revolves around bread, porridge, and whatever grows within walking distance. Meat is rare. Cheese is precious. Vegetables are boiled until flavor surrenders. You eat with your hands, you eat quickly, and you eat the same thing every day. Winters are cruel. Famine is frequent. Spoilage is normal. You develop a high tolerance for mold, sourness, and grit. If you find a worm in your apple, at least it's protein. The nobility feast. Venison, boar, swan, spices from far-off lands, elaborate pastries shaped like animals, dishes with names that sound like magic spells. Food is spectacle and status. Banquets last for hours. Guests eat in courses. Servants eat leftovers. But even lords don't understand nutrition. They eat too much meat, too little fiber, and wonder why they constantly suffer gout. Everyone drinks. Water is risky. Ale, wine, and watered-down mead are safer bets. Children drink ale. So do monks. Sobriety is suspicious. Religious calendars shape menus. Fasting days abound. No meat, sometimes no dairy. Fish becomes the holy loophole, and everyone becomes an expert in eel. Food is survival. Food is ritual. Food is a gamble. And on the best days, it's hot, shared, and doesn't kill you. Let's get this out of the way. Medieval people weren't allergic to cleanliness. They just had to work really hard to achieve it. And most of the time, it wasn't worth the effort. Bathing is rare. Water is cold. Soap is expensive. Public bathhouses exist, but they double as gossip halls or brothels. So unless you're noble or very smelly, you probably wash with a damp cloth and hope for the best. Toilets are pits in the ground. Chamber pots are sloshed into the streets. Castles have garderobes, holes over moats. Cities reek. Even kings smell like onions and wool socks. Perfume is a cover-up, not a luxury. People carry posies to sniff instead of breathing city air. Nobles use rose water. Peasants use smoke. Everyone pretends it helps. Hair is long, greasy, and home to guests. Lice, fleas, the occasional tick. Combing is an event. Delousing is a lifestyle. Shaving is dangerous. Barbers double as surgeons. Sometimes the cut you get isn't on your head. Teeth are cleaned with twigs, cloth, or charcoal. Toothaches are common. Dentists are nightmares. If it hurts, it's pulled. No questions, no anesthesia, just grip and scream. Clothes are rarely washed. Underwear? If you're lucky. Laundry days involve boiling, beating, and praying the stains surrender. Rain is a blessing, so is snow. So are rivers, if you don't mind sharing them with livestock. Despite all this, people care about appearance. They braid hair, mend cloaks, polish boots, clean fingernails with knives. Pride is resilient, even when soap isn't. Being clean in the Middle Ages is a luxury, a performance, and often a lie. Crime in the Middle Ages is not solved by clever detectives. There's no forensics, no fingerprints, no CCTV. There's just gossip, suspicion, and a guy who swears he saw something near the mill. Stealing is common. So is lying, poaching, and fighting over fences. Justice is swift, public, and designed to humiliate or hurt. Trials can involve actual trials, or just trials by fire, water, or combat. Survive? You're innocent. Die? Whoops. Minor crimes mean stocks. You're locked in wood, exposed to mockery, mud, and worse. Everyone throws things. Kids especially, it's punishment and entertainment rolled into one. Major crimes mean hanging, branding, mutilation. Thieves lose hands. Adulterers lose dignity or more. Scolds wear iron masks. Traitors are drawn and quartered just in case dead isn't clear enough. Theft of bread might land you in jail. Insulting a noble might get you whipped. Killing a man during a duel might be fine, if you're noble. Justice bends toward power, not truth. Witchcraft is feared. Accusations fly. Evidence includes birthmarks, old age, and knowing too much about herbs. Confessions are extracted with pain. Executions follow. You don't need to be guilty, just unlucky. Despite this, communities regulate themselves. Village courts, tithings, oaths. People value peace. They gossip, yes, but they also mediate, apologize, forgive. Because in a world without locks or lawyers, trust is everything, and vengeance is always an option. Religion isn't a Sunday activity in the Middle Ages. It's the calendar, the law, the fear in your dreams. And the church watches everyone. Mass is mandatory. Bells toll, priests chant, and peasants kneel, whether they understand Latin or not. Festivals are sacred. Guilt is constant. Sin is inevitable. The church owns land, wields power, and collects tithes. Priests baptize, marry, and bury. Monks copy books, brew beer, and debate angels on pinheads. Nuns teach, heal, and hide from scandal. Saints are everywhere. So are relics. So are lies. Questioning doctrine is dangerous. Heresy is contagious. Reading the Bible in your own language? Suspicious. Translating it? Treason. Most people trust the church because they must. The afterlife is terrifying, and hell is always one sin away. Pilgrimages offer hope. So do indulgences. Purchase forgiveness. Pray, pay, light a candle, repeat. Miracles are business. Shrines are popular. Skepticism is risky. But faith is real too. People believe deeply. They find comfort in ritual, in mystery, in the promise that suffering has purpose, even when the priest is corrupt, even when prayers go unanswered. Religion binds society. It explains illness, weather, luck. It offers structure in chaos. And if it sometimes burns people alive, well, better a clean soul than a dirty question. Law in the Middle Ages isn't blind. It squints hard at your social class. Justice is local, inconsistent, and often determined by who can shout the loudest or bleed the least. Disputes are settled in manor courts, church courts, or royal courts, depending on the crime, the people involved, and how bored the local lord is. Trials rely on oaths, witnesses, and ordeals. Did you steal a chicken? Swear you didn't. Have a friend swear they believe you. Case closed. For serious crimes, it's time for ordeals. Carry hot iron, dunk your hand in boiling water, survive a duel. If you heal cleanly or win the fight, God thinks you're innocent. If not, well, you were guilty anyway. Punishments are theatrical. Stocks, whippings, public shame. Nobles might pay fines. Peasants suffer pain. The point isn't reform, it's example. Justice must be seen, even if it isn't fair. Appeals, lawyers, mostly monks with strong lungs. Written law exists, but most people can't read it. Local custom trumps royal decree. Despite this, people value justice. Villages form juries. Elders mediate. Communities prefer peace to chaos. Revenge is tempting, but messy. And if all else fails, bribe someone. Because in the Middle Ages, the law isn't about truth. It's about who's left standing when the shouting stops. War in medieval times isn't noble. It's loud, muddy, and smells like sweat and iron. Glory is for poets. The rest of us are just trying not to die in a ditch. Knights ride in shining armor, but armor is expensive and heavy. Most soldiers wear padded cloth, carry spears, and hope not to be crushed. Archers are common, so are crossbows, and blood. Battles are short, chaos reigns. Strategy is yelling louder than the other guy. Once it begins, it's a blur of screams, banners, broken bones. Winners loot, losers rot. Weeks of waiting, food runs out, water goes bad, disease spreads, defenders eat rats, attackers throw dead animals over the walls. Victory comes slowly, if at all. Wars declared by kings, fought by peasants, and paid for with taxes. Every campaign promises honor. Every return brings limp, scars, and silence. Prisoners are ransomed, if they're rich. Otherwise, they're buried. Villages are burned, churches looted, civilians slaughtered. War doesn't discriminate, it devastates. Despite this, men volunteer. For coin, for cause, or for escape. Songs are written, legends grow. But the veterans know better. There is no chivalry on a battlefield. Only mud, fear, and the hope that your armor doesn't trap you when you fall. In the Middle Ages, your job isn't just what you do, it's who you are. Peasant, blacksmith, tanner, scribe. Occupation defines your place in the world, your value, even your salvation. Work is endless. From sunrise to sunset, there are no weekends, no unions, no paid time off. Just holy days, and even those might involve extra baking or cleaning the church. Farmers feed everyone. They plow, sow, harvest. Rain is a gamble. Drought is a curse. Tools are simple. Hands are blistered. Grain is life. Lose it and you starve. Craftsmen train as apprentices. Years of sweeping, learning, enduring. Guilds control trade. Who can make what, sell where, and charge how much. They protect workers. Sort of. Mostly they protect their monopoly. Women work too. Spinning, weaving, brewing, baking, nursing, fetching. Paid less, respected less, praised even less. But without them, nothing functions. Not even faith. Nobles call this the natural order. They hunt and host feasts while peasants die fixing roofs. The church preaches labor as virtue, just not for clergy. Still, people take pride in their work. A well-cut shoe, a strong fence, a field that yields. No one calls it passion, they call it survival. But sometimes in the rhythm of toil, there's satisfaction. Because even when life is short, hard, and thankless, there's something holy in doing it well. Death in the Middle Ages isn't a surprise. It's an old neighbor. It visits often, stays long, and rarely knocks. Plague strikes like lightning. Black boils, fever, panic. People collapse mid-step. Cities empty. Entire families vanish. Priests bless mass graves. Survivors burn clothes and pray louder. But death isn't always dramatic. It comes in coughs, infections, childbirth, famine. It comes from stepping on a rusty nail or offending the wrong noble. Life is fragile. Burial is swift. Funerals are rituals. The church handles your soul. Neighbors handle your body. Candles burn. Bells toll. Your name is spoken. Maybe someone cries. Maybe they just mutter finally. Tombs are for the rich. The rest get wooden boxes or shrouds. Bones are often dug up later to make space. Ossuaries fill. Cemeteries sprawl. Death is crowded. Despite the fear, people are prepared. Wills are made early, if you can write. Last confessions are common. Everyone hopes for a good death. Clean, confessed, with someone holding your hand and not stealing your boots. The afterlife looms large. Heaven, hell, purgatory, fire, judgment, angels with swords. Everyone sins. Everyone fears the reckoning. But sometimes in quiet moments, someone whispers, maybe there's more. And someone else answers, maybe this was it. Forget Fashion Week. Medieval clothing is scratchy, heavy, and mostly brown. Style depends on status, function, and whether your neighbor recently died and left you a decent cloak. Peasants wear wool, thick, coarse, unlined, dyed with plants, or not at all. Undergarments are linen if you're lucky. Most have one outfit, maybe two. You wash yourself more often than your clothes, and that's saying something. Nobles dress like walking tapestries, silks, velvets, furs, sleeves that trail like bridal trains. Colors show wealth, deep blues, bright reds, shimmering golds. Dyes are expensive, so is vanity. Shoes are leather, flat, flimsy, and often soaked. Pattens, wooden overshoes, help unless you trip and fall into a dung heap. Hats matter, hoods, coifs, veils, wimples. The higher the class, the sillier the hat. Pointed hennons, fur caps, plume circlets. Fashion is serious business, if you can afford it. Sumptuary laws dictate who wears what. Want to dress above your station? That's illegal. Envy is dangerous, and the nobles don't want you looking too clean. Despite discomfort, people take pride in appearance. They patch, dye, stitch. Embroidery is art. A well-folded tunic, a bright belt, a sprig of herbs in your hat. It's dignity. Because when life is short and brutish, even a clean hem feels like hope. Time in the Middle Ages isn't measured in minutes. It's measured in light, bells, and how loud your stomach growls. Clocks are rare. Sundials exist. But mostly time is told by the sun and the church. Bells ring for prayer, work, meals. You don't check a watch. You check the sky and hope it's not raining. Days begin at dawn, end at dusk. Seasons matter more than hours. Planting time, harvest time, fasting time. The calendar is soaked in saints' days. Every action is tied to feast or fast. The church owns the clock. Monks chant at canonical hours. Matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, nones, vespers, complain. Ordinary folk just try to keep up and not starve. Waiting is constant. For crops to grow, for messengers to arrive, for the next holy day, market day, or decent meal. Patience is survival. There is no instant, no rush, no Amazon deliveries. Everything takes time. Letters crawl across kingdoms. News arrives late, wrong, or not at all. Still, life moves in rhythm. The beat of the hammer, the chant of the mass, the sigh of the wind. Time may be slow, but it's steady. And in a world without speed, that's the only luxury you get. Being born male or female in the Middle Ages comes with a script, and few are allowed to rewrite it. Men work, fight, govern, inherit. Women serve, bear children, obey, endure. Exceptions exist, but they're rare, dangerous, or saintly. Girls marry young. Boys work early. Both are expected to contribute before they can even spell their own name. Independence is fantasy. You are what you're told you are. The church preaches hierarchy. God above man above woman, woman above sin, barely. Eve still takes the blame. Virginity is worshipped. Femininity is feared. Strength is masculine. Emotion is weakness. Yet women find power. As healers, matriarchs, nuns, midwives. As spies, schemers, storytellers. Some rule, some rebel. Most survive quietly, brilliantly. Men carry burdens too. Provide, protect, never cry. Die for honor, endure in silence. A tender man is mocked. A failed man is discarded. There are no pronoun pins, no space for questioning. You fit the mold or get melted down. But between the lines of roles, there's nuance. A wife who manages the manor, a monk who secretly weeps, a peasant girl who refuses to marry and lives alone with her herbs and her stubbornness. Because even in a world obsessed with roles, humans remain delightfully complicated. Nature in the Middle Ages isn't scenery. It feeds you, freezes you, and occasionally flattens your village. The weather is your boss. Rain too early, crops drown, rain too late. Famine, hail ruins fields, drought bakes the soil, snow traps livestock. A good year just means fewer funerals. Seasons dictate everything. Spring is muddy hope, summer is labor, autumn is panic, winter is a long, cold dare. Every year, people pray for mildness and prepare for the opposite. Natural disasters aren't acts of God. They're warnings. Lightning strikes mean wrath. Earthquakes mean sin. Disease follows weather like a shadow. The line between divine punishment and bad luck is very, very thin. Forests are feared and revered. They provide fuel, food, and monsters. Wolves howl, bears roam, spirits whisper, or so they say. No one goes in alone. Those who do rarely come out right. Mountains are distant mysteries. Rivers are lifelines and flood threats. The sea? A terrifying, unknowable abyss full of storms, saints, and shipwrecks. Nature isn't your friend. It's not even neutral. It's your unpredictable landlord, and your rent is due every season. What do you leave behind in the Middle Ages? Probably not wealth, probably not fame, just a name, if you're lucky, and maybe a rumor. Records are scarce. Tombstones are rare. Most people die unmarked, unmourned outside their village. Their stories vanish with the last person who remembers them. Legacies are oral, a tale told at a hearth, a name whispered in prayer, a child bearing your face, a deed someone insists you once did. True or not, the rich leave land, titles, scandals. The poor leave worn tools, debts, and maybe a patch of potatoes. If you carved your initials into a beam, congratulations. That's your biography. Monks might record your birth. Priests might mention your sins. But unless you write a book, build a chapel, or kill a king, time erases you gently but completely. And yet everyone hopes for remembrance, for impact, for something that lasts longer than your last breath. Sometimes you get it. Sometimes 1,000 years later, a stranger wonders what your life was like. Let's be honest. You wouldn't last a day in the Middle Ages. Your feet aren't calloused. Your immune system isn't trained. You panic when Wi-Fi drops. You'd cry over lunch options, let alone a winter of turnips. You think sourdough starter is rustic. They thought it was survival, but they lasted. They endured mud, war, death, cold, hunger, and boredom that would make your brain melt. They built cathedrals. They raised families. They laughed, danced, prayed, and complained, just like you. You wouldn't last a day, not because you're weak, but because they were conditioned, toughened, hardened by necessity. They didn't have the luxury to quit, and somehow that made them stronger. Still, their world wasn't better, just different, unforgiving, awe-inspiring, and occasionally beautiful. And when you really think about it, maybe they wouldn't last a day in your world either. Fluorescent lights, alarms, Zoom calls, existential dread in air-conditioned rooms. But if you could sit down together, over bread and beer, or coffee and screens, you might find common ground. Because at the end of the century, or the millennium, people are still people, trying to matter, trying to endure, trying to leave a story behind.